GEEK Files, 2025, December 25th, for the BBC. So we woke up in the morning in the crew house in Inuvik. The power was off. So we were talking to the couple that, the helicopter pilot and his wife who lived in the place and sort of managed things up there for Ken Bork. He says, yeah, this happens often. Steve Pennicott, the operations manager, refused to give them a float. So it's expensive. Hydro in the 80s in Inuvik was about $50 a month. You can figure that out, whatever that is for inflation. So instead of giving them a float, they could pay it locally. They could pay the $50 cash locally and then send the receipt down to Calgary. Pennicott insisted that they send the hydro bill, the utilities bill, to Calgary, and then Calgary would pay it. Well, the utilities for Inuvik, for some reason, were administered out of Edmonton. So, this is in the bad old days before the internet. So Edmonton would mail the utilities bill to Inuvik, which meant that it went from Edmonton to Vancouver and then Vancouver to Inuvik. They would then get the bill and then have to mail it back to Calgary. So the bill would go from Inuvik to Vancouver to Edmonton to Calgary, at which point it would go through the receiving process down there and eventually get mailed from Calgary to Edmonton to Vancouver to Inuvik, and then they would then pay the bill, send this check back to the utilities company from Inuvik to Vancouver to Edmonton. Well, Canada Post, and as you can imagine, with remote communities, this took longer than the 30 days before you get your hydro cut off. So they would regularly get their hydro cut off and then have to have it reconnected, and the reconnection fee was about $200. So which was like intentionally that high, so people would realize that it was 4 times as much to get your hydro reconnected as just to pay your bill. But nope, Steve Pennicott insisted on doing this, and about every 3 months these poor buggers would get their hydro cut off in Inuvik, which meant they would get their hydro cut off in the winter in Inuvik. Now, I think heating was different because that was, heating in Inuvik was the central heating, as in the town controlled all the heatings and all of the utility ducts were above ground. This was done to prevent to keep the buildings at a constant temperature so that they didn't go through a violent freeze thaw and destroy the buildings. Yeah, but that's how Steve Pennicott thought. Nope, I'm not going to give these guys $50 to pay the utility bills, but every 3 months I will pay not only the utility bill, but a $200 reconnect fee. Yeah, and that kind of attitude imbued how he viewed the Caribou too.